So we have tested how to load the suppliers and open invoices in the last session. Now, custom rules we'll see after some time. We'll see BPM. Okay, BPM, Business Process Management. So the BPM, we can set up the approvals. Okay. So we are going to test invoice approvals. Okay. You can call it as BPM, Business Process Management, or you can call it as workflows, approval workflows. So if you are from EBS background, in EBS, we have AME, Approval Management Engine. So that got replaced with BPM in the Fusion applications. So by using the BPM, we can set up the approval rules. Accordingly, the notifications can be routed for approval. Now, say we want to set up approvals for invoices, whatever you create in the payables. So how that can be achieved? Take simple rule. If invoice amount, okay, if invoice amount is same or less than 5,000, then Alt INC can approve invoice. If invoice amount is more than 5,000, then Alt INC X can approve invoices. So this is how we want to build the rules to approve the invoices. So if you want to set up these rules, what additional setups are required? So first we have to enable invoice approvals for our business unit. Say enable invoice approvals at invoice options. Okay. So as we required invoice approvals, we need to enable the same checkbox at invoice options. Okay, this we have to enable, and we can go and create the approval rules. So when you create this rule, you may want to send invoice for approvals for multiple people or single employee in the organization. It may be one or multiple you can group. You can group or directly also you can send. But for our testing, what we will do is we'll create the approval groups. We'll create the two groups. Within one group, we'll tag this Alt INC. In another group, we'll tag this another user. Create approval group 1. Within this approval group 1, we will tag Alt INC and we will create one more approval group that you can call as a 2. Here we are going to tag. And now for our testing purpose, we have to create this user also. Okay. So we have to create the user. We'll see that. Fine. After completing these setups, okay, we'll just create invoice and we will test. First, we need to enable invoice approval set invoice options. Go to invoice options, setup and maintenance. So, in the invoice options, go to approval section. Under approvals, enable invoice approval checkbox. Okay, enable invoice approval checkbox and say save and close. Done. We have a user called as Alt INC. Create one more user as Alt INC X. Username is Alt INC X. So we no need to assign any roles. Just Alt INC X will get approval notification if amount is more than 5,000. Okay, done. Now we'll go to BPM, Business Process Management, to set up the approval rules. We are going to create first these two groups. Group 1 we can tag this user, and group 2 tag Alt INC X. In each group you can tag multiple users also, but here we are taking the use case as it should be approved by Alt INC in case of same or less than 5,000. More than should be approved by Alt INC X. First, we'll create these two approval groups. You search for approval groups. Manage approval groups. Okay. So now we are in the BPM, Business Process Management. So create approval group. These are the groups which are already created for practice purpose. Here click on create. So provide the group name. You can prefix with Alt I and C, or else you say approved group 1 and add member into this group. Click on add. You don't need to search. Okay, directly you can give the name. Alt I and C. If this user is already available in this instance, it will accept. Save. Create one more group. Add member. Alt I and C. X. Done. We created required groups. Now we'll go and create the rules. These two are rules. We are going to create the approval rules. To create the approval rules, we have to use the relevant workflow. Relevant workflow. So go to task configuration. Here find the workflow called as AP invoice approvals. So AP invoice approvals workflow we have to find. For that, search for Fin AP. So case sensitive. When you search for the workflow, it is a case sensitive. In Fin, F should be capital. In AP, A should be capital. Here is the workflow name. Okay. Fin AP invoice approval. Fin AP invoice approval. So select workflow name. The workflow definition will be displayed in this area. Then we can go ahead and we can create the rules by enabling the nodes. We'll discuss. Okay. First, find the workflow. Here you have to enter the name and click on search button. Okay, if you use enter key from the keyboard, it doesn't function. You just click on search. You can find the relevant workflows. You select Fin AP invoice approval. Select. Once you select, that entire definition will be displayed in this area. Then we have to go to specific node. Yeah, we'll see that. So now first you click on edit mode. We have to turn this workflow into editable mode. Click on edit. Go to assignees tab. Go to assignees. Here you have a workflow. Okay. AP invoice. So these we call as a nodes. Okay, these we call as nodes. Okay. Ideally, it should be many nodes, but in this environment, it is showing very limited. Okay. No issues, just these are the nodes we call. Okay. These are the nodes we call. These all nodes are enabled. You see, these icons are in the yellow color, green color, blue color. Okay, these icons are in the blue color. It means those nodes are already enabled. So let's disable these nodes. We don't need all these nodes. One node is enough, okay, to set up approvals for us. Just you disable this node, select. And here select advanced. say ignore participant so that this node will be ignored. And select another node. So node, node, node. Ignore, select, click on advanced and ignore. Now click on save, say OK. And click on commit task, say OK. Again, click on edit, go to assignees. Now you can see most of the nodes are disabled, only one node is enabled. We'll use this node, okay, we'll use this node to set the approvals. What is the difference between these nodes? Okay, what is the difference between these nodes? Here you see, if you place the cursor on this, you can see this icons. Here it is showing as a single. Okay, even it is showing as single, it is not single. The name is not properly written. So these would be like serial, parallel. Really, this name should be like this. In this instance, appearing differently. Okay. One second, we'll go to other instance. Okay. I'll just walk through that part also because ideally we will be able to find the multiple nodes here. I'll take you through. First, we'll try with this. If it works okay, or else I'll take you through other environment also. So here we are going to use the single. Okay, not only for single, for multiple users of multiple users. If you want to send the notifications, you can use the same. It's all about how you are going to create the rule. So this node, other nodes already we disabled. Why we disabled? We don't know like what rules are written within this node, within those nodes. That is the reason we disabled. So we are going to use the node here where the icon is represented as a single. Now click on this blue dot icon and select go to rule. Click on go to rule. Here we can write the rules. Few rules are already written. You can notice. I want to disable these rules. Select rule. Click on properties and inactivate and say OK. Now you can see this rule is inactivated. This rule icon is appearing in the color, but this is appearing in the grayed out. Okay. So select other rules and disable. We have one more rule. Select. Say OK. Okay, we just disable the rules, whatever already available in this environment. Now we'll create our own rule. Here under rules, click on this drop down and select general rule. So if condition. So what we want to write here, if invoice amount is same or less than 5,000, then Alt INC can approve the invoice. That is a rule we want to define. So under if, click on this plus icon. Next to that, we have a drop down. Click on drop down, select simple test. And here we have to give the expression if invoice amount is same or less than 5,000. So for that, you can search for directly, you can type here, or else you can click on search. From there also you can find out that expression. Just better you can click on search. Search for invoice amount. Invoice amount. Okay. So here we have a invoice amount. Here also we have invoice amount, invoice amount. Anyone you can choose, but you better you can go with the invoice header. Expand under invoice header. The invoice amount folder we have, expand it. Directly you can select invoice amount, but Oracle recommends to select it as a long value. These all are Java classes. Okay, so select as a long value. Long value. Say okay. The invoice amount always will represent as a long value. Now, here select condition as the same or less than, right? That's what we discussed. Same or less than how much amount? Click on search, enable constant, how much amount. If you are going to enter amount, follow this process. Directly you can enter the amount in this field, but sometimes it doesn't work. So if you want to enter any amounts, what process we have to follow? Just you can enter 5,000 here, but sometimes it doesn't work. System cannot understand. So best thing is click on search, enable constant checkbox, enter amount 5,000. Say okay. So we create a rule if invoice header amount is same or less than 5,000, then what system should do or who can approve? Click on drop down. From the list, you select add approver and select approval group. Select approval group. Go to add approver, select approval group. Here select who can approve. Who are part of AZ1, approve group 1, they can approve. We have only one user. Okay, we have only one user. Then now submit this rule for validation. And scroll little down. Here you can see the message. It is not showing directly. You can just click little down to scroll. So no validation errors warnings found. Okay. There are no validation errors or warnings found. with this rule. That means rule is okay. We'll create one more rule. Click on the plus icon, say general rule. Rule 1, rule 2. We can change the name also. If you want to give the name, here click on properties. By default, system is taking names as a rule 1, 2, 3. So here you can make it as maybe more than 5,000. Say okay. Now you can write the if condition. Click on drop down and select simple test and click on search. What is the condition? Invoice based on invoice amount. Under invoice header section, expand invoice amount. Directly invoice amount also you can select, but what Oracle recommends, select always long value. Here more than, click on search, enable constant, enter amount 5,000. Say okay. Then who can approve? Go to add approver, select approval group. Select approval group. Here, select approval group name as AZ2. Approval group 2. Now click on validate. Check the status. Try to scroll it little down. The message you could see. No validation errors or warnings found with this rule. Then click on save. Click on commit task. Commit task is equal to deploy. The rules, whatever we created, we are deploying. Just again, let's go back to edit mode. And assign is, go to rules. We'll change the name for the rule 1 also. Select, click on properties. What is the rules? Same or less than 5,000. Then click on validate. We didn't do any changes. That would be fine. So save it. Just we change the title. That's all. There won't be an issue with validation. And deploy. Commit is equal to deploy. So we deploy. Now here, system is asking us to run the synchronization. Okay, this workflow related synchronization required. Click on start synchronization. Okay, it will take few minutes time. Meantime, once again, we'll cross check the approval groups, whatever we created. So within the approval group 1, we selected Alt INC. In approval group 2, we selected Alt INC X. Okay, cool. Okay, it will take few minutes time. How you can notify as the synchronization is completed? Here you can see the process icon. This process icon will get stopped once the synchronization will complete. Okay, with the workflow related synchronization is pending. So just you click on, if you see that message anytime when you create approval rules, just click on start synchronization. So it will update the changes related to workflow. So just that is action we have to perform. Wait for a few minutes. Okay, it may take 5 minutes or more than 5 minutes also. So once the synchronization will complete, we can go and create the invoices. So we enable, okay, the invoice approvals in the invoice options, and we created two groups, group 1 and 2, and then we created two rules also. Then we'll go and create invoice. So we'll go to invoice workbench meantime. Still you can see it is in progress. So we'll wait for a few minutes. I'll just pause the recording. Let's have a 5 minutes break. After 5 minutes, we'll check the status. If it is ready, we'll proceed. Yeah. Now we can notice the process icon got stopped. It means the synchronization is completed. That's what we can assume. Now we'll go and create the invoice and we'll see how that invoice is going to be routed for approval. In some instances, okay, these approvals doesn't work. Some instances these approvals doesn't work. If these approvals are going to function in this environment, okay, or else I'll just take you through in the different instance. Ultimately, we'll see the result. That is our target. Fine. We'll go and create invoice and we'll see. So I'm just closing this, not required. So create invoice. So as per the rule, if invoice amount is same or less than 5,000, the first rule. I'm just creating amount. I'm entering amount 5,000 or less than, say, 4,000. Go to lines. Enter line amount as 4,000. Select distribution set. Validate. Okay. Submit invoice for validation. After validating the invoice, if you click on validated status, you can see approval status as required. This invoice need to be submitted for approval. Without approving, you cannot make the payment. If you try to process the payment, it won't allow. The invoice must be approved before it can be paid. So that is a check. Okay. So now go to invoice actions. And here we have action called as approval. Click on approvals. We have a different sub options, actions. So select initiate. We are going to initiate the approval. Click on initiate. Now we initiated approval. Now what system will do is, system will check what approval rule is applicable for this business unit. For this specific business unit, we didn't write any rule, then it will look for common rule. The common rule is, if invoice amount is same or less than 4,000, that can be approved by approval group 1 people. In approval group 1, we have only one resource. The resource name is Alt INC. The username is Alt INC. Then the notification will go to Alt INC. Alt INC will approve. Then here the status will turn into approve. As of now, status is initiated. So the notification will go to the approval. So after creating approval rule, this is the first invoice we are creating. So to send the notification to the authorized person, means who is the right approver, it will take some time. From second invoice, whatever you create, it won't take much time. Okay, it won't take much time. So that we can just see. We have to wait for a few minutes. The notification will come here. The bell icon, you can get the notifications. This is a one area where you can see the notifications. The another area is, you can just go to payables and go to payables dashboard. So within the payables dashboard, okay, under requiring my approval. So under this tab, you can see if any invoice is waiting for your approval. Okay. So based on the user, okay. So this user can approve which invoices, needs to approve which invoices, that it will display here. So we within this instance, if approvals are working, the notification will trigger and we can see. Otherwise, we will test in the other instance. There is no other option. So these approvals doesn't work in all these test environments. In few environments, I can say like 80%, you could see those function in the most of the instances. Sometimes it doesn't work. We'll see if it is working okay, or else we'll try in the other instance later. Fine. So here you can go to notifications. Directly we can drill down to BPM also. Click on notifications bell icon and click on show all. Now go to all. Here also you can see nothing is displaying. Now click on work list. It will navigate us to BPM. Just click on work list. Okay. My tasks. Within the my tasks, you can find the notification. First, the notification will come here slow. Then it will be populated in the notification list also. Administrative task means all the notifications which are there in the across the workflows within the BPM. Those all you can see here. But ideally, so what needs to be approved by this user, that would be displayed in the my tasks. So you don't need to navigate to this page, BPM work list. It will be populated in this notification list itself. Okay, it takes some time since it is a very first one. And it should populate here also. Okay. So we'll wait for 5 minutes and we'll check. Okay, it takes time. Okay, these approvals when you submit for synchronization or when you create the first transaction after completing the approval rule, it will take some time. From second transaction, it won't take much time. Quickly, it will respond the notifications you can see. and you can take the necessary action. Just we'll wait for 5 minutes, then we will just go and check. I'm just going to pause the recording. Okay, here just refresh. Now we can see there is a notification. So requiring my attention, the workflow identified, okay, which user can approve this invoice as per the rule. If invoice amount is same or less than 5,000, can be approved by Alt INC. So notification is received by Alt INC. The same notification will come here also in the bell icon also you can see. See, approved. Directly this Alt INC can approve or reject. Okay. So from here also the same action can be performed. Select this. Okay, if this user wants to see the detailed information, so click on the subject line so that that invoice information would be visible. Invoice details. Okay. So from which user it is coming, from Alt INC, supplier, supplier name, supplier site, belongs to which BU, the details, which account is entered in the distribution. So due date. Okay. So from here, the user can perform the action like approve or reject. Just click on approve. And as a approver, any comments going to enter, they can enter here. If any attachments, they can attach the documents. Finally, they can submit. So this is how like approval notification can be routed and can be approved by the designated person who has authority to approve. The person can approve. Now we'll go and check the invoice status. Open invoice. Click on validated status. The approval status is workflow approved. Yes, BPM workflow approved. The same you could see. Now we'll go and create one more invoice with more than $5,000. Say 10,000. Submit for approval, submit for validation, then go to approvals and initiate approval. Again, system will look into the approval rules which are created in the AP invoice workflow, and accordingly it will be routed for approvals. Okay. So now this notification will go to Alt INCX. This notification will go to Alt INCX. We'll just log into the same instance from different browser as Alt INCX. Okay, here in the bell icon you can see, you click on this bell icon. So there is a notification to Alt INCX. Action required for this invoice where the invoice amount is 10,000. Why the notification is coming to Alt I and CX? Because invoice amount is more than 5,000. So this Alt I and CX can approve it. Approve. Now go back to this page and check the status of approval. Workflow approved. Now go to invoice actions and select action called as view approval under notification history. How this was routed, who submitted, where it was routed, and finally who approved. You can see the complete history of the notifications and approval. You can see invoice approval, the action initiated by Alt INC, and invoice approval assigned to Alt INC X and approved. Alt INC X approved. This is the history of this invoice approvals, how it was routed. So this is how we can implement the invoice approvals. So now we implemented by using the approval group. Now we'll see how the approvals will work in case of employee supervisory approvals. Okay, employee supervisor. If employee is creating any invoice, that should be routed to the specific supervisor only. Who is the supervisor for that employee? The notification should go to the same supervisor. Say employee supervisor. If you want to test employee supervisor approvals, we need two employee users. Here, approval group, we don't need employee users. Implementation user also will work. But in case of employee supervisor, we need two employee users only. So already we have employee user called as Alt INC. Now we'll create one more employee user called as Alt INC M for say manager. Want to designate Alt INC M as a manager for Alt INC employee. So instead of taking the people name, I'm just taking this company names. So here, what we have to do? First, already we have this employee. We are going to create one more employee. After creating this employee, between these two employees, we have to create the relationship, employee supervisor relationship. So we have to specify for this employee who is the supervisor. We'll select this employee user as a supervisor. So that we call as we create employee supervisor relationship. After creating employee supervisor relationship, we'll go and create the approval rule. Create approval rule. That's all. So already we have Alt INC. Let's create Alt INC M as another employee user. So go to manage users to create employee user. Alt INC M. And hire date. So hire date can be any date. So whenever you hire this manager, that hire date you can take, but in most of the instances, it doesn't work the reality. So always system will look for this manager hire date prior to employee hire date. So always take the hire date prior to this alt INC hire date. I'm taking, we hired this a manager on 1st John 23. Okay. The user which you are creating who is going to act as a manager, that manager hire date should be prior to employer hire date. Reality that may not be true, but in the system, so that's how it is required. There is a bug in the most of the test environments. So if it is a production, okay, it works as you expect. But always take this manager hire date prior to employee hire date. And take the same name to create the user and person type, employee, legal employer, say save and close. Wait for a moment, it takes time. So after creating, so user for manager, now we have to create relationship between these two users. So for this user is going to act as a manager, or else for this employee is going to act as a manager. Now we have to go to this employee user to select this employee user as a manager for this alt INC. Right. You just go to alt INC, select alt INC and go to actions, click on manage users. And for alt INC, who's the manager? Select here. Alt INC M is the manager. Selected, say save and close. And click on done. So that's what we call as creating the relationship. Now we'll go and create approval rule. So before that, we'll set, okay, we'll just go and set password for this user. For alt INCM, we created as employee user, we didn't set any password. So go to security console to reset the password. Alt INCM, search, click on reset. Reset password, click on done. Okay. Now the next task is create approval rule. The next task is create approval rule. So go to task called as approval groups. It will navigate us to BPM. You can use approval group task or else you can use this task also. Manage task configuration for financials. Any one of the tasks. Okay, fine. Now click on manage approval groups. Select task configuration. Find our workflow name. Fin AP. Here is the workflow. Fin AP invoice approval is the workflow name. Now go to edit. Select assignees. Go to the node which we was enabled. So let's disable these rules. Already we tested. Okay. Now we'll create the new rule for employee supervisory approvals. So go to general rule. Rule 1 is the default name. To change the name, click on properties. EMP. Supervisor rule we are creating. Now go to if condition. Simple test. You can say if invoice amount is more than 1, or else you can say always invoice should be submitted to supervisor for approval. To set that expression, give 1 is 1. If 1 is 1, okay, always 1 is 1 only, right? So that means it is applicable all the time. If 1 is here, set 1. Don't enter 1 here. In this field, always go to search, enable constant, enter 1. You can enter directly also, sometimes it doesn't work. Okay. So 1 is 1. If 1 is 1. Yes, always 1 is 1. Means always system has to follow the approvals, irrespective of amount, any amount. Add approver, select supervisory. Okay, select supervisory. So number of levels. The number of levels means, say, A is creating the invoice and it should be approved by B. B is the A supervisor. That means only one level. So if that is not enough to approve the invoice, you may just set C also. Means A supervisor is B, B will approve, but invoice won't be approved. B supervisor is C, C also should approve. That means if A is creating invoice, that should be approved by user supervisor, and again that supervisor also should approve. That means 2 levels approvals are required. Or 3 levels. How many levels that you have to set? Here set only 1 level. Starting participant. Click on search. Here, just give the expression. System should understand we are trying to create the which rule. Whenever you select supervisor, it is selecting list builder as a supervisor automatically. But here, starting participant expression also we have to give, which will support the same. So whatever system is defaulting, accept as it is. And here you write the expression as task dot workflow space submitted. So it's again case sensitive. TASK task. T is capital, then dot. Workflow W capital space. Submitter S capital. As it is, we have to write task dot workflow space submitter. This is what we have to write in the I mean the expression which we are writing as a starting participant. Now go to top participant. Select get user. Okay, the top participant select get user, and within your organization, who is sitting very top level in the approval hierarchy, that person name you have to provide here, that username within the system, the person we create user, that username we have to provide. In our case, we have top level only Alt INCM. If you create someone else, you can give. So any username you can give, it will work. But as per reality, you provide always. You have to enter the name in the double quotes. Alt INC, yeah. So in our case, the top level is Alt INCM is the top level authority user here as a supervisor. So within your organization, who is just sitting top level, that username you can provide for approval purpose. But always system will see who is creating invoice for that user, who is the supervisor, the notification will be routed to that user only. Okay, it won't look here who is the top participant, but as expression we have to provide here. That's all. Say okay. So this is how we have to create the approval rule in case of employee supervisory approvals. Okay, in case of employee supervisory approvals, this is how we have to create the rule. Now, click on validate. Now, click on validate. Done. Fine. You just check the status. If you want to check, scroll little down here by clicking on down arrow. You can see no validation errors or warnings found. Cool. Now click on save. Just click on commit. We'll go and create invoice. That invoice should be routed to the supervisor, which user is creating or which employee user is creating invoice. System will verify the record employee record level, who is the supervisor. Accordingly, the notification will be routed. Now we'll go and create invoice from Alt INC. Any amount we given, if one is one. Okay, always one is one, any amount. You may enter one or 100 or 1000, doesn't matter. Any invoice you create, if any invoice this Alt INC is going to create, that would be routed for approval. I'm just creating with $1000. Again, this we created very common rule. We didn't specify currency. That means it is applicable any currency. Within the rule, you can specify if currency is equal to USD or INR, if supplier is equal to so and so, if business unit is equal to so and so, those additional conditions we can write within the rule. We'll see that after testing this use case, we will see those. Validate. Now initiate for approval. Approval, initiate. So initiated. Now notification will be triggered to supervisor. It will go to supervisor. So just now we created rule. When you create the rule for the first time, and if you create the first transaction, the routing will take some time. From second transaction, it won't take much time. So now we have to wait for a few minutes. Okay. So we'll wait for a few 5 minutes and we'll check. I'll just pause the recording. So we'll go and check. Now log in as a Alt INC manager. The manager should receive the notification. Click on bell icon. We created with 1,000. Notification is received by manager. Approve. And here, check the status of this invoice. Workflow approve. You want to see the history? See the history. Initiated, assigned to Alt INCM, because we created a approval rule as should goes to supervisor. Any user creates, it should goes to supervisor. For all the supervisors, you don't need to set the rule. That one rule is enough. You may have 1,000 users. If 1,000 users are creating invoices, 1,000 users may have the distinct of 10 supervisors. It will go to all the supervisors. The one rule is enough. Okay, we written the rule. If anybody is creating the invoice, it should goes to supervisor. There is a top participant, any one of the supervisor, top supervisor name you can provide. For every supervisor, you no need to add in that list. So this is how it works. And another point is if you want to include multiple conditions, okay, you can include. Could be any rule. Okay. So any rule, this employee supervisor or this rule or any rule. Let me activate it just for our testing understanding. Say this rule you written. What is the rule written? Invoice amount is same or less than, okay, 5,000. Now this would be applicable for any business unit. Okay. It would be applicable for any business unit. For how many business units? So enable invoice approval checkbox is enabled for all the BUs. It is applicable. Now you want to limit this rule for specific BU, then you can add the additional condition. Just click on add, simple test. Here add one more. You can click on search or directly you can type. So type business unit name. Here is the business unit name. Select business unit name. Is you provide your BU name. Click on search. Enable constant. You cannot select any values here. You have to enter directly. Alt INC US business unit. Save. Now this rule will be applicable only for this BU. Okay. Here and operator is and. This rule. Okay. This two system will consider. Or else you can add one more condition. Click on add. Simple test. Say supplier name. Select supplier name. Supplier name is enable constant Alt INC corporation. Now further filter. So this rule is applicable. If invoice amount is same or less than 5,000, so and so people can approve who are in the approval group one. When if that invoice is created within this BU, that too with this supplier only. And here you can switch the rules, like see here, and or you can set. Here by default it is and, or you can say or. So click on and it will turn into or. That means this is the first rule, or these two will act as a second rule, or else you can make like this. Here you can set as a or. Click on and it will turn into or. Here you can make it as a and. Yeah. So here and. So these two rules are met, these two conditions are met, or this condition is met. It will be routed for approval. The same way you can give the person who is creating invoice is equal to the creator, invoice creator, and many parameters we have, like when you create invoice, what are the parameters, what are the fields you enter, those many fields here you can select to set the condition. This is how you can create. Okay, here everywhere I am just giving and, that means the condition should met. And I given. So this rule and this rule and this. So if these three are met, then only that invoice will be routed for approval and can be approved by the people who are part of approval group one. So this is how you can write the multiple conditions, and accordingly you can trigger the notifications. Yeah. So this is what we have to understand. Anyway, we'll see one more time the approvals when we are working on GL. We'll set the journal approvals. So this is how it works. Fine. So
Lakshman,
yeah,
after validating the invoice, we are submitting, right, for initiation approval. Can we do automatically, or every invoice we have to do?
no, we can initiate. We can initiate. You can submit the program. Here, what we are doing is we are just clicking on. Okay, we are just here. We are clicking on from actions, right? From invoice. Instead of that, you can run the initiate approval workflow.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you.
You click on initiate approval. Again, you can set the parameters. You can submit, or else you can schedule it. Okay, schedule it.
Okay.
So we are selecting parameter as a business unit. Now you can submit, so that with this BU, if any invoices are pending for approval, it will get initiated, or else you can schedule. Go to advanced tab, schedules. So this program should trigger every 1 hour once. Set hourly, every 1 hour or every 2 hours once. Okay, that's how you can, the start date, end date, you can specify and set the manage timings and all, you can change later also. Then you can save this definition, so that every 2 hours once this program will trigger. This program will look for the any invoices which need to be initiated for approval, which are created wherever approvals are applicable. It will go and check the approval status. If required, it will initiate every 2 hours once, which are not yet initiated. So this is how you can automate. Since we created just manual invoice, one invoice, just from the invoice workbench itself, we initiated. That's all. Okay. This is how we can run, or we can automate it. We can schedule it. Okay. So that's all for today. In the tomorrow
Sir,
session, we'll work on custom roles. We'll work on the custom roles.